today changes my whole entire life.
Welcome to Gritability, a podcast about perseverance, overcoming seemingly insurmountable odds to attain the life of your dreams. I did it right this time. Last time I tried.
Good job, bro. Excellent job.
George had to save me, but Adam's not able to come into the studio today, but I have an amazing guest here with me. Her name is Lauren Drain. This is our first time meeting.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You got to take your foot off the pedal.
Oh, no.
I showed you the cough button.
And now I'm stepping on it the whole time. Hi, thanks for having me.
This is great.
Why? So George messed me up. He might have helped you out, but he messed me up because he told me to step on the
I
cough
showed you the
button.
new toy for the last thing, and you were like, oh, I want to play with it.
It's okay, because last time I held in a cough and I was choking. You know how it chokes you more?
Yeah.
I'm choking and I'm like
That
trying to
did
catch my
happen.
breath. I can't talk. It was terrible. So just so that you guys know, there's a cough button. If you need to cough, you guys can't hear it. We could shut our mics. And so that's what we were practicing before we started. But anyway, back to the podcast and what we're going to talk
I'm
about.
here. I'm cough-free right now, so we're good.
This is our first time meeting, and I'm really excited to have this conversation so it could be so authentic on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for coming in. So you have this amazing story, and you have all of these accomplishments and these credentials, and I'm going to list some of them, and I'm probably going to forget a lot of them because I'd rather not use my notes, but you are a fitness model, a bikini pro. You have over 5 million, am I right? 5 million social media followers?
Yeah, across the different platforms. 4 million on Instagram,
Amazing.
over 1 million on Facebook, and
That's
things like that.
amazing.
I have a
Oh my
TikTok
God.
too.
A New York Times bestseller,
Yes.
registered nurse.
Yes.
What am I forgetting? Tons?
No, not a ton. Just like an online personal trainer. I have my own, I help train people online, so I have my own, fitness app and things like that.
Okay.
Now I have my own podcast. Just so I'm
Yes.
getting to podcasting too. So it's called Triggered. It's on Spotify and
I
YouTube.
was obsessed with it. I'm like
Yeah.
stalking you yesterday, so I learned your story, and it's amazing. Amber and I were just talking. We're like, for somebody that can do a podcast, and your first one for an hour by yourself, amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
So somebody looking at your story or just coming into your social media could easily look at you and be like, oh, that was easy for her. She's gorgeous. She's got a body that deserves to be on cover of every fitness magazine,
Oh, you're
right?
so sweet. I wish.
And it's true. No, you're beautiful. But what we like to highlight on Gritability is the comeback story, right? And
Yeah.
what made you so resilient? Because I know you have a lot of stuff in your past. We have a lot of similarities in our past,
do we?
actually. Yeah.
Well,
And we
share that with me. What do you think we have in common?
I was raised in a religious cult myself.
You were?
Yeah.
Which one?
It's called People of Hope.
Oh, okay.
Have you heard of it?
I haven't, but
Okay, most people haven't because it was a small little community. They
Yeah.
called it the community
Yeah.
in Jersey.
Yeah.
And I could tell you more about that later. I was a little bit younger.
Okay.
So when my parents got out of the cult, I was only 13 and they got out of it with us. So I
Okay.
wasn't excommunicated from my family. I'm kind of giving away your story.
wait, say that one more time. So they got out
They
before
got
you
out
did?
with us.
Oh,
So
with you,
I
okay.
wasn't separated from them. I didn't
Okay.
have to overcome that.
Okay.
So do you want to start there since we kind of
Sure, we
opened that
can.
up?
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. So, the book that I wrote, it's a memoir. It's called Banished: Surviving My Years in the Westboro Baptist Church. So, if you've heard of that church, it's very infamous. Basically, they protested a lot of heinous things, churches, military, like you name it. God hates this, God hates that. Like it was just very infamous years ago, right after September 11th and that whole time frame. So I wasn't actually born into it. I was brought into it when I was 14. So very formative years. You're already very confused about your identity and who you are and what life is like and what you're into. And I was thrust from like kind of an average normal life to now you're going into strict cult life. So I basically all of a sudden I couldn't dye my hair. I couldn't cut my hair. I couldn't wear certain clothes. I couldn't paint my nails. I couldn't talk to boys. Like I had previously had boyfriends and now I can't have a boyfriend. Super strict rules. And so it was a pretty intense cult life. My parents brought me there. I had a younger sister who was 5 years younger. And then my parents ended up having 2 other younger kids when I was there. So it was just like no dating, lots of, I don't know, like shaming of certain sins and certain behaviors are openly, publicly humiliated. So anything I did wrong or perceived wrong was like blasted on email, shamed and like punished. So we would get like openly punished by all the other members of the church. We could be scolded by other members of the church. So even though you have your parents who are pretty intense with their rule holding and making and the punishments, then we would also get it from everyone else. So if it's a community of about 70 people, 5 core families from like grandparents down, then you're getting a lot of like, I don't know, scrutiny. It's a kind of a gang mentality. Like now from the outside looking in after the fact, it feels very gang-like mentality. But when I was in it, I was so young and impressionable and vulnerable. And I really, really wanted to make my parents happy and proud. And I actually do really believe in God. And it was ironic because at the time I found God, but like in a weird cult. So it was like, there's weird rules that didn't seem to add up with everything I was reading in the Bible. And then it was like, but I believe in God and I feel this strong connection to my faith. And that's really, so I just kind of assimilated to whatever they were telling me, you got to do this, you got to do that. And I was there till I was 21 when I got kicked out for talking to a boy that the church basically said you're not allowed to because they have to all agree on who you can court. And it's a very like, if they don't agree or think that person's a believer, then they'll shun you and shame you. And so, yeah, it's pretty intense. And I was there during like very formative years from 14 to 21. So your adolescent years, you're just trying to figure your life out and figure out what you think, what you believe, and still try to live under your parents' roof. And so, yeah.
It's hard. So many similarities.
Yeah.
And a selfish question before we move on.
Okay. No, we don't.
I heard you say.
Yes.
I heard you say on your podcast how when you left, you wanted to make sure you kept your faith in God.
Yes.
And that meant a lot to you.
Yes.
For me, I did the whole like rebellious thing afterwards, same thing, couldn't date, couldn't be around boys, couldn't wear certain things, very, very similar.
Oh, wow.
So went to college, did the drinking and the drugs and the boys and all that stuff, right? And when I came back, I'm like, okay, that left me nowhere other than kind of with hangovers and a lot of regret. My dignity is, still somewhere in North Carolina.
Fun stories.
Yep. So, and then like as we moved out here, like that's years and years and years ago, but we started developing, Adam and I, business relationships with people who are very heavily into their churches, which I don't hold anything against that. I do believe in God in my own way.
Yes.
But multiple different people who don't know each other would tell us like, well, God told me to do this. And then they would do these horrible things. And they would use God telling them to do that to manipulate you.
Oh, man.
So I started developing this really, really bad taste in my mouth because of the scars that I already had and that trauma. So just curious from your perspective as somebody who was able to not have that like work against you and still keep your faith in God, how do you do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I remember when I got kicked out, so I didn't actually leave. I was kicked out against my will, which really, that's why I ended up developing mental health problems, which I talk about on my podcast. I ended up developing PTSD, complex PTSD and some other issues. Later on, they surfaced, not right away. But basically, I got kicked out against my will. So I was ready and willing and able to like listen to like whatever they had to tell me and prove that I love God, I love my family, I'm whatever, I wanted to stay with my family. So that was that was very challenging for me. But as far as like how you distinguish between your faith in God and it's people, these are people's opinions. Religion and church and traditions, they're all people. They're what people decide that God thinks. They're what people decide the tradition should be, how you should behave, who you are, what your heart is. And at the end of the day, no human can see your heart. They can assume what they think you are, but only God can see your heart. So the way I look at it is these people, they develop these rules and regulations and punishments and humiliations to kind of like, maybe originally it was to kind of keep everyone in line, or maybe like to make sure they don't sin too far or get caught up in problems. Because, obviously going off the path can lead you to problems, whether it's drugs, alcohol, whatever, so maybe it had good intentions, but trying to control people, I don't think that's what really God wanted us to do. I mean, it's almost like we have like laws to help us understand that if you go too far in any direction, any extreme can lead to problems. I mean, we just know that from life experience. So I think it's more about that. And I think the many, many churches are a social gathering to kind of feel godly or feel like self-righteous or something like that. And they end up using the rules and however they perceive the right way to live, to control people. And I think that we all should be able to like kind of interpret things how we think and have our own, like you said, personal relationship with God. Like I literally don't go to church anymore. I mean, I will occasionally, but I don't need to be approved by everyone. Like to me, that's not what justifies who I am as a good person. Like I have my own conscience. I have my own, prayers or beliefs, and I just practice them on my own. And I think that anytime we start getting caught up in just what all the people think, we lose sight of what God really is. Like having a good heart, having a good conscience, doing right to people, treating them the way you'd want to be treated, So I had to learn the very, very hard way that even if people say they're of God or they, that I shouldn't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Maybe they had good intentions, maybe not, maybe they got way off track. but I still know there's something to this. Like when I left, I had no one. Like my mom, my dad, my sister was my best friend. I had best friends at school, my neighbors, everyone I knew and loved for the last 7 years cut me off. Like wouldn't talk to me on the phone, wouldn't answer my texts, like ghosted me and wouldn't let me talk to them. I couldn't come to their house. It went from flip-flop. Like it went from like we're best friends all day, every day that we hang out all the time to we completely cut you off. We're going to shame you. We're going to humiliate you. We're going to kind of like snicker and make fun of you as if like you're demonic or you're satanic. So it was very bully meant, like the way I was treated was very bully, you know, and I struggled really hard with that. But like I said, I remember praying the first day that I got kicked out. I was at a hotel room and I was like, just God, just show me the path I'm supposed to be on. Show me where I'm supposed to be. Show me where I need to go. If there's some other way. And if this is not the place, then I'll go do the right thing somewhere else, you know? So I just remember having that prayer. And because I had no other support system, I think that's what made me hold on to faith so strongly, because I knew I had to get through. I knew I had to survive this. Depression was going to take a hold of me. Suicidal thoughts were going to take a hold of me. Like I needed faith to get me through. And it got me through such a hard time. Like the first 6 months were incredibly hard to go from everyone to no one. To go from like having a somewhat of a social life, at least within the church, to you work and that's it. Like I would clock in and out of the hospital, my nursing shift, and I would come home depressed because I couldn't talk to anyone. And I even kept reaching out to my family at the time. Like I would call my dad, I would call my mom, I would text them, even my sister. My sister actually ironically worked across the street from where my really shitty ghetto apartment was. Is like crack house central, is like $500 a month for a furnished place in a shitty part of town. But my sister worked at the Dairy Queen right across the street. She was 5 years younger, but we were best friends. And I kept thinking like, I want to go across the street and talk to her and check on her and see her. But this was against the rules, right? So I was so controlled. I was so brainwashed at the time that to believe to obey, like you're supposed to follow rules, obey. And like, so I was drilled into me that if you disobey our rules, you can't get back in. So I was still thinking I could get back in.
Wow.
And I wasn't even like, it wasn't about the religion. I actually had fought a lot of our principles. Like while I was there, I was challenging a lot of our beliefs. Like why God doesn't hate, you know, these people. God doesn't laugh at people when they're in tragedy. Like I was challenging some serious beliefs that we had based upon Bible. Because the thing is, they taught me Bible every day for 7 years. So I became kind of like a Bible scholar and I understood. So I would question our beliefs and strategies and how we treated other people, judging people and such. And they didn't like that. So I think part of the reason I got kicked out so quickly is because they made an example of, if you ask questions and you fight the system, sure, you fight, then you're getting kicked out. So but anyways, after I got kicked out, I was still in this crazy brainwashed mentality of you need to obey even when I'm out, which is crazy. They still had mind control over me. And I didn't see my sister right across the street from me every single day. I could have walked to Dairy Queen and said, hey, I miss you. Like, how are you doing? Whatever. And it's just crazy how much control, like if you're in a place like a cult, how much control it has over your mind and behavior and the programming for a really long time. Even when you're challenging it, even when you're starting to not believe certain things, it takes a while to deprogram yourself. And so I just feel like I wish I would have done that. That's one of my biggest regrets, is I never went to my sister and saw her. And I didn't have, at that time, I don't think I had the strength or the know-how, or like, I'm a very curious person now, and I'm very much, I'll go after what I want. I reach out to people no matter what. If we have a conflict, I'm always like trying again and doing my best. But in that moment, I was just very discouraged, and it was all about the obey mindset that I still had in my brain, thinking that maybe I could get back with my family. Because at that point, it was all about losing my family. It wasn't so much that I wanted to be in that religion. I thought there was a lot of messed up things about religion. So,
Do you have a relationship with your family now?
Ironically, I do. I haven't even shared this on my podcast yet, but they did come back into my life in August of 2020 during COVID. Actually, I found out, because I actually have a few friends that have left the same cult, and we've remained in close contact, that my family left. My dad, my mom, my little brother and little sister. Although my sister that I was telling you about, it's 5 years younger, she's still in it. She was married into it and she has kids and everything. So it's a lot. It would obviously be a lot more challenging for her. So yeah, my parents left, and it was I'm not going to tell their whole story, because like I said, I haven't revealed that yet. They wanted to keep it a little bit calm and private, because they were still kind of recovering from leaving. But I will say that I'm very proud of them. my dad was in it for 20, my dad and my mom were in it for 20 years. I guess my siblings were too, because they were born into it. Yeah. So, and I was in it for like, what was that? 14 years. Okay. So they left like 5 or 6 years after I left. Is that right? Yeah. No, it's got to be longer than that. Well, I was separated from them for 15 years. So is that correct? Why am I doing the math wrong? Okay. I hadn't seen them in 15 years. Yeah. So they came out in 2020. I left in 2000. I'm not doing my math this morning.
That's okay.
2007.
I wouldn't follow. I can't do math to begin with.
It was a long time. I hadn't seen them in 14 years. So anyways, we reconnected in March of this past year. So my little siblings were 3 and 5 when I saw them last. They were like 20 and 22 when I saw them. So yeah, big time gap. I missed their whole childhood. I missed being an older sister. I missed the bonding experience. And the thing is, I actually really enjoyed being an older sister. It was like one of my favorite things about being in the church. You had several roles there. You know, one of the roles is kind of like a caretaker. The older siblings take care of the younger kids. And so I was kind of like a second mother. So I was with them since they were babies, and they were only 2 years apart. So me and my sister Taylor, we would take care of Bo and Faith. I was 16 when my mom had my brother Bo, and 19 when my mom had my sister Faith. So we were very, very, like, it was a huge gap. Like, I was a mom figure. So that was really a big struggle for me when I lost them, because I was so close in that way. And I really valued that role, the older sister role. So it was very challenging for me to go from being an older sister of 3 to none, and to be a daughter to not being a daughter, you know. So I experienced a lot of loss at once. And yeah, that's been very challenging. So we did rekindle, and it's amazing seeing them be like these amazing humans that somehow also escaped a different scenario, but a similar situation, and that they're still not damaged. Like, yeah. I don't, it seems like they're very well adjusted. They're very like intelligent. They're very kind. They're, you know, so it's really cool to see that, because what happened to me damaged me pretty severely. So I'm still recovering. I'm 37. I've been out since I was 21 going on 22. And most of my mental health crises came up when I was like 35. Midlife, I had some mental health breakdowns. And after I became a mother, I struggled too. Yeah, I actually was at 2020 and 2021. I had some severe mental health crisis where I had to like really take my mental health seriously and do some deep digging in my inner work and in trauma work and stuff like that. So I'm very proud of like that journey that I've been on. And that's kind of why I started the podcast Triggered, because I was very triggered, and that was what was going on with me. I ended up developing complex PTSD that I was diagnosed with. And all these things were surfacing. I had to start to do some digging and find out where it came from. I actually did hypnotherapy. I did some EMDR work. EMDR work, for anyone who doesn't know, eye movement desensitization reprogramming. It's basically where you're kind of in a hypnotic state, and you access whatever you're going through. It might be anxiety, it might be sadness, it might be anger. And where in my life am I feeling that now? And then you close your eyes and you go to the first memory of when that first intensified, and you're able to access these traumatic memories, and you're able to process them, neutralize them, and purge them. So at the end of these sessions, it can be very intense, because you're kind of exposing yourself to trauma. So at first you might feel super overwhelmed. You might be flooded with emotion. You might start spontaneously crying or screaming or yelling or being angry for a while. You might feel exhausted because the trauma was trapped in your body. But it's very effective at purging it. Like, you don't realize you've been carrying trauma in your body for years. You've been carrying pain in your body for years. And so, as discouraging as it was in the beginning, like, why am I having panic attacks? I can't pick up my daughter. Why am I like losing weight? Like, why am I feeling suicidal? Like, all these feelings, as I started to do these different therapies and modalities to heal myself, I started seeing the benefits. Like, I was less triggerable. I was less angry. I was less anxious. Things that used to trigger me a lot less now. If I had a 10 out of 10 chest pain when you would say this, now I only have a 3 or a 2. So I started seeing the progress, and I finally felt like, oh my God, this is amazing. Because in nursing, in my nursing background, I was a nurse actively practicing for 10 years. And when we learned about mental health in my mental health rotation, they were basically telling us that PTSD is non-treatable and non-curable back when I was in school. So I actually had a couple of PTSD patients on some of my rotations, and we were just drugging them up. We were just giving them Xanax or whatever drug to make them feel calm. Sometimes they were allowed to like smoke or do whatever to ease their anxiety. And I was just like, are we really just slapping Band-Aids on these people and not helping them with their severe trauma and these elicit these crazy PTSD reactions that they're having? We have nothing to help them with. So just in my lifetime, from the time I was in school in my 20s to now, like I'm 35, we have huge modalities: EMDR, hypnotherapy, ayahuasca, plant medicines. Like there's all kinds of ways to help heal these things, because it's not, you have to go to the wound, right? So you have to dig down, and some people don't even know what their wounds are. Like when I went to ayahuasca and some of these plant medicine ceremonies, some people are coming there to heal addictions, traumas. They might even not know what's wrong with them. They're just like, I go from relationship to relationship. I can't hold anything down. I push people away, or I have these weird coping mechanisms. So, and then they do the ayahuasca or the plant medicine, and they see what their trauma was, and they're able to make peace with it. Like they're able to purge it. They're able to release it from their body. They're able to feel love again. They're able to feel self-love, or they're able to maybe forgive someone if they needed to forgive someone. It's very healing. I went to ayahuasca retreat with 90 people in the room, all different walks of life, all different ages, all different backgrounds, all different problems. And we all took the same medicine. We take the same cup of medicine, pretty much the same dose, same medicine for every type of issue: sexual trauma, addiction. Because at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're opening up your psyche to help you purge trauma and pain. Because what we end up doing is we get these armors up, right? The armor might be, I push people away. The armor might be, I develop PTSD. Armor might be all these different things and coping mechanisms. I'm addicted to something because I'm so broken inside. And I witnessed firsthand people healing the most wide range of issues. People healing from death trauma, people healing from sexual trauma, people healing from their whole life, they didn't know what was wrong with them. Healing from addictions pretty quickly in 1 or 2 or 4 ceremonies. So
That's incredible.
Yeah. So that was part of my journey. It was pretty intense. I actually talk about my ayahuasca journey in a whole episode. I talk about it. I posted some stuff up on YouTube because it is a very intense medicine. You have to know what you're doing to go into it. And it is going to be emotional, and it's going to be mental, and it's even going to be physical. You feel physical sensations running through your body. But yeah, it's a psychedelic, so use at your discretion, all that's jazz. But yeah, that's something I've had to do the last 3 years. The last 3 years, I've been on a pretty big mental health, personal development, healing mind, body, spirit journey. Because what I'm learning is with trauma, you're not responsible for it, but you are at some point accountable. Like as an adult, you have to make sure you don't pass it on to your husband, your friends, your sister, your children, and that it really will perpetuate no matter how much you don't want it to and how much you're shameful of whatever it is that's going on. It's like subconscious, and it will project out. Like it'll be in there. So that's something I had to learn, is that like, as much as I despise certain behaviors that I have when I'm triggered, I have to do the work, and the work is not easy, and you feel like it's unfair, and you get pissed off because you're like, someone gave this to me, this circumstance gave it to me. And at some point you want to give up because you're like, I'm re-traumatizing myself and I feel like crap now all day long after these. And then you see the light, and you get a little uplifted when you start to feel this weight come off your chest, and you do experience that. So it's a struggle, because apparently it's going to be a lifelong battle for me. But in 3 years, I can tell you I'm a completely different person, and I'm a very self-aware. I feel like I can honestly say my daughter, I think I can make sure my daughter doesn't ever have to deal with this.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So where did fitness fall in? Did this come in during the healing process that you're talking about?
That's a good question. So my fitness journey, I was about 28 when I started to take like the gym seriously and to go into the competing world. And I saw this girl with abs on Instagram. Like, I want to look like that. And I had no idea. I would just do random stuff. Before that, I would go and do Stairmaster for 20 minutes and like 3 crunches or something.
Yep.
I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like, oh, I'm at the gym. And then I hired a coach and I started doing it. So at first it was like a very aesthetic thing. Like, I want to be in the best shape of my life. Like, I'm 28, and I saw this inspo pic and I'm like, oh, how do I get like that? And then she said in her caption, it was something like, you can get this in 8 or 12 weeks. I'm like, what the heck? That's insane. And I signed up for a program, got a coach. It was the whole diet, your typical bodybuilding diet. It was like rice, broccoli and chicken and, boring stuff at first. And I got in insane shape in 12 weeks, like insane. Like, I had always been kind of like, like skinny fat. Like, I never had abs, but I always felt like I had a flat tummy and, whatever. But I just went and just proved to myself, you can literally transform your body really fast and really well. And I became addicted to that process. So like I said, at first it was very aesthetic. And then I fell in love with the process and what it did for my mind and body. And I felt for once in my life so in control of my life. Like, there's a lot of things I couldn't control at that time. Not seeing my mom, not seeing my dad, not seeing my siblings, not knowing where my life's going. But I can control how I look and feel, how strong I am. I can have a competitive edge. Like, it just felt like it was filling a lot of holes for me. And I just felt this new sense of like strength and energy and power. I felt empowered. I felt very confident. I think it was the first time I ever had really decent or really improving self-confidence and self-worth. So it was very therapeutic in that manner. I don't think at that point I was still unconscious that I had any mental health things to work through. So I gravitated towards it knowing this just makes me feel so good. This makes me feel energized. This makes me feel, like I said, it's good self-esteem. And then I caught the bug. I started competing and it was all downhill from there. I literally was working actively full-time nursing at 2 different hospitals, still competing, still going to the gym every day. And I was like, this is my lifestyle. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to do this rest of my life. And still to this day, I'm 37 and working out is a huge part of my modality to heal and to, have therapy. And I'm aware now that it does affect my mental and mood stability. So if I go off and I can't work out for a while, whether it's like something in life with my daughter, travel, I instantly need to get back to the gym. And the gym will release a lot of pent up energy and it will release anxiety, frustration, even depression. Like, when I'm depressed, obviously you don't feel like getting up out of bed and it's like the last thing you think you want to do. But as soon as you push yourself, it moves the chemicals around in your body and your serotonin starts to move up. And it really does positively influence you to get out of depression. Like, so yeah, it's absolutely central to my healing. It's central to my life. It started aesthetic and now it's like everything else. Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
And I used to say when I was competing in fitness, people would be like, how could you do it? Because I was the same way. Old school bodybuilders, chicken and rice, water for 3 days, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, because I'm really good at suffering because of my past.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, wait, that's like a terrible way to look at it. And to this day, I have to stop myself from being like, oh, I can handle this. I'm gritty. I know how to suffer.
Yeah.
And Adam and I came up with this thing, like, no more unnecessary suffering because we put ourselves through those things.
Right.
Not only like physically, but also it gets a little bit, crazy.
Yeah, it does.
A little bit.
Obsessive,
Yeah. So looking back on your whole life and where you are now and where you came from, would you exchange it if you could? Would you take it back?
In a lot of ways, no, because I am who I am because of it, for sure. I mean, I think I have such a unique perspective, and I do actually really believe, if we want to get on a spiritual level, I believe in spiritual things too. I think it needed to happen to me for a reason. I needed to be propelled into a huge growth phase. I needed to know spiritually I can overcome anything. Because looking back now, in the moments I feel super duper weak and low, I remember what I did. I'm like, I can literally not to be brag, but I can do anything. Like, I can overcome even these small obstacles. And so it made me who I am. It made me empathetic with people. I am very connected to people who've been through struggle and overcome things. Obviously, with your husband, I connect so strongly to that. Like, I don't connect on surface levels with people. Sure. I won't do that. I don't care how pretty, popular, whatever you are. Like, you're boring to me unless you have maybe grit ability.
Yep.
So yeah, I wouldn't take it away. I think God had a purpose for me. I think the universe had a purpose for me. And now I'm where I'm at now. Like, how would I influence people to get fit? How would I have, I literally went from my nursing following to telling people you can take your life back with fitness. I've gotten people off blood pressure medications, cholesterol medications, you name it. And people are overcoming their anxiety, this, that, eating disorders, all because I decided to make this a career and I started to be outspoken about it, a public figure about it. I really believe this is good for your health. So, and I wouldn't have gone on my mental health journey if I didn't have a mental health crisis. So yeah, a blessing in disguise, 100%. Yeah, I wouldn't want to like re-go into it, but I really value it now. Like I'm on the other side of it. I'm not in the thick of the pain, so I can value it. And, yeah, it's a weird blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I get it. And I think like in ways where you were talking about your little sisters and how you were kind of groomed to be a maternal figure, like I feel like I was the same way.
Really?
And it helped me become a better mother. I feel like in a crazy way.
Yeah.
You feel the same?
Yeah. I mean, I felt like a second mom. I couldn't quite put my finger on it at the time of the loss. And apparently I experienced loss as if you literally lose a child.
Yeah.
Like that's how I went through the same devastating emotions and the grief process. And that's before I've even ever knew what grief was, because I had to grieve recently. My brother-in-law passed during COVID. So it was very, but that was like an actual death loss. And I was like, wow, these are all very similar emotions that the extremes of the depth of the emotion, the depth of like the anger, the depth of the sadness, the depth of the pain of loss. And I lost all family members at once and for an unlimited amount of time. And I think this goes to what maybe you can connect with me. You knew you had an unlimited future with Adam. So you had to, it's a weird grief because you don't know. It's an unknown. Am I ever going to see him? Am I ever going to get him back? This is what I thought with my family. Am I ever going to see them? Am I ever going to get them back? And what hoops do I go through? How much am I forcing something versus it's meant to be? Yep. Like that's a weird thing too. Cause like, I remember there was one time, and this is going to sound crazy, cause you will go to, when you're grieving, your brain goes to really crazy places. Yeah. Especially when it's not an actual death loss, it's just a loss of like physical interaction. Your brain will come up with weird solutions. And my brain decided to look up the laws in my parents and family lived in Kansas at the time. And they have this law about sibling. So when you have a divorce, it's parental custody. There's sibling custody. So I looked this up and I was doing the research and I was like, man, I actually have a case if I wanted to get my siblings back. And, I thought about I wrote down all the pros and cons. I didn't really go to like seek legal counsel, but I had it in my mind, like, this is what I could do. It's my right. They shouldn't be able to take them from me. They're stealing all my years. They're stealing my whole life. They're stealing my identity. And I was just like, man, I can't do this. These are children. They don't understand what part they're part of. They don't understand where I'm coming from. They're going to make me look like the evil bad guy. And here I am coming with a legal team and like, what's my motive? I was like, I can't do this to children. Like, it's just not fair. Like, I'll pray on it if something, comes to me. But I do remember like thinking some really bizarre things. I remember coming to the church, like when I was out, I would like come to the church and sneak in or get them. Like I had the weirdest ideas because I'm just like, how, this is an unfair scenario. I feel completely wronged. I want to fix it. And I'm such a passionate person. You clearly are too. Like, you're like, I'm going to go to the end of the earth to get this. Yep. With Adam, you clearly did. Yep. And if I have the energy and I have the passion, I have the spirit, then not like everything else is just a barrier. Right. Yep. And so I was like, what do I do with this passion? I can't do anything. There's nothing to do, like, you know what I mean? Like when you have so much energy inside and like, you don't know where to put it. That's how I felt for a while. So I had to kind of distract myself out of it because I didn't have a roadmap. I didn't have a strategy to get them back. So maybe you can share that with you because you clearly had to deal with like the unknown of like, am I going to ever see this guy? Am I putting all my eggs in this basket and it's never going to come to fruition? Yeah. And Adam uses this line where he's like, you don't realize unless you're actually in that situation what you would do. You think you know what you would do. Like, oh, if I was given a life sentence, I'd kill myself because that's the easy way out, right? I'm not going to sit in jail for the rest of my life until you're there. Yeah. Right. And kind of similar, like with your story, that's where the glimmers of hope and really having to like grip and get gritty to get yourself out of it or come up with the solutions versus like, oh, my life is great right now. I have hope for everything. Yeah.
when your
Yeah.
life is going perfect, of course, you're
Yeah.
going to keep hope alive and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And for me, when it got really bad, I had my fitness to rely on.
Okay.
I had things that I had set in place because like he was telling you about his clemency.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest part of our relationship, minus the last 2 weeks before he got out. That was the closest I came to breaking up with him.
Really?
Yeah, because it was the most traumatic of
Yeah,
our
of
relationship.
course.
But minus that, 4 years before was when he was up for clemency.
Yeah.
And I remember they denied it. So I get word the night before Trump is sworn in
Yeah.
that his petition was on the vice president's desk, and
Yeah.
it's going to happen. And it was this
Yeah.
guy that was very religious. Pray with me. I prayed with him, blah, blah, blah. So the next morning I'm at a doctor's appointment,
Yeah.
and the girls behind the front desk, they were adorable. And I loved going in and like chit chatting with them. So the inauguration's on the TV and I'm chit chatting with them. They're talking about like what everyone's wearing. Look how cute her dress is. Look how cute that one is. And I'm trying to like keep my composure
Right.
because as it's happening, his petition's not getting signed.
Right.
So my whole life is crumbling, but I'm trying to just play it off. I can't tell these people what's going on in my life,
of
right?
course not.
So it's going on and I'm fighting back tears and I somehow get through it and I get in my car and I just start sobbing because I'm like, it's over.
Yep.
Right. So then it was over in that moment. And that lasted about 6 weeks where like I would just spontaneously break out into tears.
yeah.
I would be sitting at my desk at work. I couldn't talk about my relationship at work because I knew people who got fired, whose husbands were in prison. They got fired for other things, you know, because you can't
wow.
get fired because somebody finds out
Yeah.
your husband's in prison.
Yeah.
So I kept that quiet. I needed my job to afford to be able to go to visit and take the days
Yeah.
off and blah, blah, blah. So gave myself those. It shouldn't usually take 6 weeks. Usually I gave myself like 24 hours. And then I could grieve. I could, grovel. I could take off of work. I could eat shit. I could watch Netflix,
Yeah.
whatever I wanted to do. And then I told myself, and this is what I always told the community of women I built, you got 24 hours, grovel, feel it, because you don't want to bottle those and push those
Right.
down, those
That's
emotions.
true. Yeah.
And then you have to put on your big girl pants and
Yep.
you have to go through life. It doesn't mean the sun's going to come out, but
Yeah.
it means like go to work.
You give yourself 24 hours?
I gave myself 24 hours to grieve. And then I just had to go through the motions of life. I had to go
Okay.
back to work. I had to go to the gym. I had my little things that I did every
Yep.
day. It was very routine back
And
then.
then what was the time frame between that moment and then the actual release?
So that was 4 years.
You had four. So from there, you were able to put in 4 more years.
4 more years. It was tough. And it was just kind of like
What?
those, like you were saying, like those glimmers of hope, right? And I would reassess every day. Is this something I want to continue to fight for?
Yeah.
Or is it time to let it go?
Was there an immediate strategy after the clemency issue and him
No.
getting denied? There was no
it
immediate
was
strategy.
Like, that was our moonshot. That was our last hope, it felt like. And then Adam was always better than me at like, okay, let's redirect. Let's figure
Yeah.
something else
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like, there's nothing.
Oh my God.
And then we
So
would have
he
to
had
just
to be
keep
the
fighting.
strong one, but
Yeah.
behind bars.
Behind
and you're-
bars. Yeah. I'm out here like, oh, my life's over.
Yes.
He's stuck there
Oh
forever.
my
But
gosh.
yeah.
So did your mind shift to, okay, now I'm going to kind of like block out that reality and just kind of live my life with him for a little while until we figure out something else? How did your mind shift? Because if you go from hope to no hope, there's got to be a shift.
Yeah. So I had to reassess and say,
Yeah.
like, is this something I want to continue to fight for or not? And I
Yeah.
remember during that time, one of my girlfriends was like, listen, Ro, like, I genuinely have faith he's going to come home one day. Who knows when that's going to be? But what if right now you just live your life like he's not coming home? So this way you don't have the ups and the downs.
Okay.
I tried it for like 25 seconds. And I'm like, I can't, because if I do, then I have nothing to fight for. I was too far deep
You were
at that
invested.
point.
You were super invested, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I can't. And then we would just like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to focus on now. And we'll try to get the law changed. And I connected with his attorney, and you heard the whole story. But yeah, it took 4 years
Wow.
from that point.
What is it that kept, I mean, obviously you had an awesome connection, super deep connection. But it was like a full blown love affair. Like you were able to like hug and kiss when you saw each other and stuff like that.
Just hug and kiss. Once at the beginning of visit, once at the end of visit. And if it
Okay.
was too long, they would like shame you from across the room. Clausen, too long. And I would be like mortified.
Oh
Yeah.
God, you're like in high school having teachers
my
like yell at you.
God.
Oh, my
God. Yeah.
Wow, you've been through it, man.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so that makes sense. It's good to see that like mind shift. But yeah, I'm the same way. So I think you having to go through the length and duration of this is what gives you so much grit and strength.
Absolutely.
And me too. Like if it was only a couple of years, I wouldn't be that like passionate. I wouldn't be that like patient. I wouldn't be that, I don't know, whatever it is, you know? And I really did believe each moment when each year passes, I just thought it was forever. I didn't know it was just
Right.
15 years. I thought, okay, it's forever. Like I just need to go one more year. So it's crazy how your mind, and then when they come out and you see someone, you're like, oh, this is it. Like, what? Like,
Yeah.
it's very weird. It's like the most blindsided, dissociated, for me, it was anticlimactic. I mean, for you guys, it was climatic. But for me, because I saw my family and they weren't yearning for me like I was yearning for them.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit different. But I had to romanticize it so big in my head. I like made all these fantasies about it.
Yep.
And none of them are true for me anyway.
Yeah.
I know you guys had plans, so that you were able
We
to.
had plans, but I could tell you this. I dreamt of that day that he was released so many times. I'm like, Kim Kardashian, ugly crying. It's beautiful. I fall into his arms. It was nothing like that. It was so stressful. It was.
And you guys
that's
were like all
a different
nervous.
episode.
He told me how like
so weird.
you stepped outside the prison. Like, do we take a picture? Do we take a
It was
video?
so weird. And get this. So
I'd be like so anxious. Like, get me out of this place.
I was, right? So 2 weeks before this happens, there was a guy named Chad who was in Adam's same shoes, like very similar laws, life sentence, He gets his release. His family's there waiting for him. He could see them. He's dressed out. He's ready to go. As he's walking out the door, his family's right there. Like, you could touch them practically. They're like, Chad, you got to come back. There's a stay, meaning the prosecutor was like, nope, this isn't happening, right? So now he's turning around. His family's right there.
Oh my God.
Turning around for his life sentence.
He has to go back and do his
at
life
the
sentence.
time, thank God, like he's out now.
Okay.
They got that overturned. But I said to Adam those 2 weeks before, I don't know this is coming for Adam, right?
And of course, you had to witness this, or you were told
hear
about.
it
You were
'cause
told
we
about
all
it.
kind of have connections
Okay,
with each
yeah.
other. It's a small little community, and so I told him, I was like, "Yo, like they told Chad he could not come home. His family was there. I wouldn't be able to bounce back from that,
Right.
at all." So now, fast forward, Adam gets his release. I'm coming into the property. He comes in with this awkward hug, and this cop who's getting off duty because it's shift change. So the cops are coming, COs, cops, we call them same thing in feds.
Okay.
They're coming in and out, and the guy thinks he's making a joke. He knows nothing about Chad, but he goes, Clausen, they want you back inside. And Adam says to this day, like my heart fell to my feet. I was like, fuck, it's happening. Oh my God, I'm here. Like I already went the week before to pick him
Yeah.
up, and they told me to go home.
Yeah, that's right.
So those 2 weeks I told you was the worst
Jesus.
experience, right? So I'm hugging him. I'm like, what? The guy's like, just kidding. I'm like, let's go. We're out of here. That's why
He was joking.
He was
Oh my God,
joking, and
that's
he didn't
so
know the
fucked up.
story. He just thought he was
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
So that's why I'm like, we're not stopping at the sign. We're just going. Yeah, but so it
Dang.
wasn't. I mean, very, very different scenario, but it wasn't all it was cracked up to be in my head either.
Oh my gosh, that's such a tease.
I know.
Wow, you've had a lot of teases.
A lot of teasers.
So actually, but the teases, do the teases actually make you now think, okay, things are just a tease, and I just got to push past whatever this bullshit is?
Not really, but there are a lot of times I'll be like, is this really happening? Or are they going to take it away? So maybe that's the same thing.
Yeah, you're like questioning it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Wow. I mean, I have a lot of questions for you too. I mean, man, like 11 years, you are able to be dedicated, and like, because you probably wanted family and stuff too. So you're like, well, what if he's in there
Yeah.
longer than I can even produce a family?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah, no, that was huge for me. And
Yeah.
I did YouTube videos back to just kind of help people in my
okay.
situation. And I made this video one time, probably maybe 6 months or a year before he came home. And I was just pouring my feelings out. I was like, listen, you guys, this is a decision I made. And now I'm so far in, like, I'm not turning around, obviously. Maybe not obviously, I don't know. But I'm like, these are all of the situations that you can find yourself in if you're with a lifer, because there are people that go on like write a prisoner pen pal sites and they fall madly in love with these guys, and in the moment you're like, I could do life, I could do forever, and I'm like, think of words like forever and infinity and indefinitely, like that's your life. You don't know if it's going to be true. And I did want children,
Yeah.
and I thought that's what I was like put on the planet for, because that's how I was raised back in the day.
Yeah.
And I had to reassess, like, is this actually something that I can give up if like I'm on my deathbed and I look back and I didn't have a child because I
Yeah.
stayed with Adam?
Yeah.
Is that something I'll regret? And I just
Yeah.
had to keep reassessing.
Dang. It's
Yeah.
so cool. You guys need a movie. I mean, you need a documentary, but you also need like a lifetime drama movie.
I know.
And then maybe like a couple of, I was telling him he could even do like mentor series, like how to get a woman in jail. Behind bars.
And here I am talking shit like, don't do it.
He could be like a mentor for all the guys in jail and be like, listen, I'm the Rico Suave of lifers.
That is my new favorite title for him, by the way.
I have no idea. What do you call guys in jail? I'm sure there's something, but he was telling me how back when he was a kid, organized crime was like glamorous
Yeah.
and like very like it was just something that people were like, oh man. I was thinking about it right around the same time, probably like Ocean's 11 was out, and like Brad
Right.
Pitt is like, hey, like I'm robbing banks and I'm hot and like look at me, like.
Especially where we grew up too. He was
Really?
in South Jersey. I was in North Jersey. So it was like hub for the mob. The Sopranos was a big thing. Like,
That's
yeah, it was
insane.
totally glamorized.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
To see, like, to actually meet someone that went through it and stuff like that. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start with all these questions. So your whole was your whole support network basically prison wives and things like that?
Yeah, because what I did was I tried to tell people in the beginning, which obviously I got like what the fuck are you doing? From people who, like my family, my friends who deserve to say that to me, and then just total strangers. And I'm like, well, obviously, like looking back, that was stupid.
Yeah.
But I didn't have anybody that could understand or even answer my questions. Like, what am I allowed to wear to visit? What am I allowed to do? Or empathize. Like, I haven't heard from him for 3 days. Is he okay? Is he alive? Are they on lockdown? Is he in solitary confinement? You don't know, and there's no way for you to tell. And if you call a prison, they're going to be like, honey.
Yeah.
Not that nice, of course, but we can't tell you that information.
Right. So why do they tell us that why do they try to glamorize prison that there's conjugal visits? Like, is that not really a thing, or only certain jails do that?
Only certain states. And I think there's only 4 left. No federal prisoners get conjugal visits. I think it's California, New York, maybe Michigan. I don't know. I'm speaking wrong, but if you guys know, let us know in the comments.
We should make a list, and these are the only places you can commit crimes.
Right?
Yes.
And then I had a friend, like you had so many people who would be like, there's one friend in particular, Adam's friend, who'd be like, yeah, but when your conjugal visit comes, and he's like, we don't get those. And then like a couple weeks later, like, yeah, but when your conjugal visits, like he couldn't wrap it around his head that Adam couldn't have conjugal visits. So like in his head, they were happening.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's crazy that you guys, because that's another. I mean, do you guys have any producers talking to you yet? Do you have anyone talking to you about your book?
Not about our book or our movie. I did way back when he was inside. Like people wanted me on the Love After Lockup, like all those prison shows.
Do you have any videos? Well, you have all your YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of content you could make a documentary out of. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think they need like the inside, like his before, like the whole story. Yeah.
You can't record or take pictures in prison, right?
Not unless you have a media pass, and in the federal prison, usually they don't.
So you guys have no photos of you meeting?
Just photos.
You do have a photo?
Yeah, you can take photo once, like they have to buy tickets.
Oh.
And then when you buy a ticket, you're allowed to go, and it's like, oh my God.
Wait, are they taking it, or it's on your cell phone?
No, you're not allowed to bring your cell phone.
Okay.
So they have a person, like his job as an inmate is to be the prison photographer. We have funny stories about that.
This is hilarious.
But it's hilarious. And then like some people get really, really into it, and they do like these cheesy prom poses,
yeah, of course,
and all this
you
stuff.
Do the most
because you're like, okay, I can get a little
awkward
feel.
family photos,
like little feels, and like sometimes they do. They have like these cheesy backgrounds. I mean,
I've never heard of that.
That's amazing.
We got to find those.
This will be a whole episode. Yeah, we'll take our photos from the years.
Oh my God, we have to see these photos.
Yeah.
Wait, so Adam was a photographer for a little while?
No.
Oh.
So there's somebody's hired to be your photographer.
Okay.
The inmates have to buy photo tickets at the commissary.
Okay.
I don't know how much they cost. We'll have to ask him.
Yeah.
And then you can use them per visit.
Yeah.
When you want. Mm-hmm. And then you're allowed to take like your 1 or 2 pictures, and you have to go, and everybody's watching you.
Yeah.
And then there was this one CO who would stand behind the photographer like really awkwardly close. It was disgusting, to make sure that, no one's handing off drugs or anything. God. I know, all kinds of stuff you don't think about.
Yeah. Well, Adam told me that there's like open weed and wine in prison.
Oh yeah, more than there is. I mean, and not just
like
weed and wine, like
they're
hard
throwing it back
drugs.
And like having a joint. Like,
oh yeah.
Oh.
But also like hard drugs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So they don't really get caught. They're just kind of like, whatever.
Well, sometimes they get caught, and sometimes they're, okay, let's think about it like this.
Yeah.
If a lot of times they would say like visitors are bringing them in, or they're sending them in through the mail, which happens sometimes.
Oh, wow.
But in the amount that it's in there, right? If it's that prevalent, it's more prevalent than the street. I don't think it's just the visitors that are bringing most of it in. So could it be like COs that are getting paid off? Could it be, that kind of thing?
So do the prisoners have an ability to make money in jail? And is it like
they all have their little
significant
hustles,
amount?
but this is really cool. See, you should come back on with Adam
have to.
because
Yeah.
he can explain this more, but they're not allowed to have money, cash.
Yeah.
The only money is on it's called their books, but it's like their bank account.
Yeah.
But so what they use are stamps.
Okay.
And stamps become currency inside of prison. So he'll be like, yeah, I got a haircut today. It cost me $2, which means like 2 books of stamps. Isn't that funny? So I'm like, can I just send you a whole bunch of stamps? And then you can use, he's like, no, don't do that. I'll get in trouble.
Oh my gosh. This is a whole
it's a whole
community and lifestyle culture.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So I think we're running out of time. So tell me, is there anything else you want anybody to know? Tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Instagram, Lauren Drain Fit. I'm an online personal trainer, NASM certified, registered nurse. If you want to check out my book, it's called Banished: Surviving My Years in the Westboro Baptist Church. It's a memoir, and it's on Amazon. You can pretty much find it. You could do the audiobook version. But yeah, if you want to get in shape with me, guys, I'm running a challenge. I always take males and females worldwide entry. We get fit, we get the bodies of our dreams, and I also give out cash prizes to the top contestants. So
that's
yeah, I give out
amazing.
$3,000 cash each time.
Wow.
Yeah, I think people need a little motivation. You know,
Absolutely.
they need a little incentive to take on that journey. But yeah, 6 weeks and you'll get fit. Super fun.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
my website,
Oh yeah. What's your website?
laurendrain.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
This
you,
was so
Ro.
fun.
You're
I'm
so-
totally buying
Oh my gosh,
your book.
we have to go on.
Oh my God.
a double date.
I know. And I'm like awkwardly going to buy your book and make you sign it for me.
Oh, I'm down.
Okay, cool.
Hell yeah. Let's go.
All right. Thank you so much,
Thank
you guys.
you.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Okay, bye guys.